in here tell me what comes after the word Mac?
MacBook?
Mac 10? Bro, you just saved my life!
What? This guy, he tripped and fell in the back of McDonald's? Subscribe to my YouTube channel and follow me on Instagram.
Would you come up here and solve this problem for the class?
I can't.
And why is that?
Because I have a boner.
Oh.
I have a boner.
Okay.
I have a boner.
I have a boner.
I have a boner. I have a boner. I have a boner. I have a boner.
I have a boner. All right, no, boys. Come on, sit down. Class is not. Sit down.
Show me your gritty.
Devious
Show me your gritty.
of the century.
Come on. Show me your gritty. Show me your gritty. Come on. Show me your gritty.
This is Alexa. What is the purpose of the visit?
Jesus Christ.
I can inform the resident. What is your name?
Perry the platypus! Oh, God! What are you doing? Oh, Perry the platypus! What are you doing? I can't wait to spend the rest of my life with you, Perry the platypus.
Perry, the baby's kicking. Oh, I love you so much.
Perry the platypus, did you say something, my darling? Oh, wait, what the hell is going on here? You have to choose, Perry the platypus. It's either me or him.
Come on, Perry, let's ditch this retard.
Fuck alive, Perry the platypus! Fuck alive!
The imposter from a moment literally left us aside. What does it say? Deed is sus. Who's Deed? Who is Deed? Schleppish, where are you? Oh my god! Schleppish! Who's Deeds?
Look at this scoundrel. Look at this little scallywag, this little devious guy. What is he doing? What is he doing?
I thought it would be funny to put fireworks in my goofy dad's turkey sandwich. I'm staying at my friend Juan-Dale Pringle's house. My mom caught him and beat him with a pan.
Oh, he's stealing! He's stealing! Yo, I was joking, yo. Make me a maniac, but you don't know.
Yeah, you finally fixed the chair.
You know it.
Whoa!
Good evening. I would like to begin by introducing myself. My name is Hydrogen, and I come from a low-income neighborhood where life is not very comfortable. I've stolen many things and been involved in many altercations, most of which have ended in gunfire. In addition to this, I've had sexual intercourse with a great number of the opposite sex. In contrast, and despite the lack of legitimate evidence, I believe you to have been involved in a fair amount of homosexual activities. Activities I and my companions look down upon. I am so much stronger than you, and my powers of rhetoric so much greater than yours, that you could employ an army of some sort to aid in your fight with me, but I, of course, would prevail, because I am stronger than you. I'm sure I needn't remind you of my place of birth, wherein, as I explained before, the living conditions are much worse than in your aforementioned city of residence. I would like to stop here for a moment and remind you that I am in fact orating with little or no prior preparation, an act commonly referred to as freestyling. Once again, and I think this bears repeating, I would like to restate my claim that I am in fact much stronger and have endured a larger number of hardships than you. Hardships which have left me with an aggressive behavior and an imposing demeanor which I believe frightens you. I know of a woman...
I'm getting banned? Yeah, I'm sorry. No, just listen. No, okay, you fucking...
Plus, bro. Says I need to... For my next payment due is in 1970. How the fuck am I paying?
Hearing these strange sounds coming from the kitchen. Holy shit! It's the Slender Man! And he's cooking hot dogs on the stove! Hey, you hungry home invader! Stop raiding our refrigerator! Yikes! He just whacked me with a warm wiener! Twice! Wait! You ain't got no lips! How the hell can you eat potato chips? Whoa! Knock it off, you skinny son of a bitch! Quit stealing our food and go buy a friggin' sandwich! You bony bastard! Look at this place! It's a disaster! Oh my God!
Hi, how may I help you?
Let's keep it short and sweet. I think you know why we're here.
Travis Scott Burger.
Hello, Earthling. I am an alien from another planet. At the present moment, I have changed into this mobile phone. While you are looking at my face, I am rubbing my testicles and making love to your fingers. Don't say you're not enjoying it, as I can see you smiling. Ah! Feel my passion, feel my
Oh my God! Oh my God!
Does he know the method? No way he knows the method. No way he...
The kid is not my son. Woo! She says
Holy Jesus, what the flip, dude? Mother trucking Thor over here trying to frickin' knock down my house. Frickin' dragon looking mother trucker. Why don't you come fight like a man, little Thor looking, head cheese looking, butt cheese looking, hot dog looking.
Oh yes, Dad.
Hey Grams, what you doing?
I'm with the baby.
Let's go.
Well it be, it appears I have made a mistake. We must shave all the hair off at once. By the heavens, no!
And hit! Drive! Henderson, what the hell are you doing?
Get the fuck off my porch! Get your ass off this motherfucking
We'll trap Santa in my box, locked up like Fort Knox, and make him stop my clock.
Hello? Is this Among Us? Imposter? Is this the imposter from Among Us?
Hello and welcome to the Mental Health Hotline.